This morning. Delray, message out to you. Just be thinking of you, eh? I'll tag Josh.
Josh, checking in, feeling grateful to be back in good health. And yeah, just feeling excited. I'm also in Joburg, so feeling a bit cozy with the weather. It's nice. And I'll tag Mark.
Mark checking in. I'm feeling joyful. Yeah, so that took a while to come to me. So yeah, I'm checking in with Joy, and then I will tag. I think that's everyone except David. David, I'm tagging you.
So, David, checking in. I'm in a hotel room. My face is looking a bit purple. It's interesting. It's -1 where I am, and I'm in Middlesbrough, up north, delivering recovery coaching training, and it's going great. So I'll be here for the first hour, and then Anessa will carry the container to the end today. Okay.
I just found out, guys, like
Yeah,
literally.
cool. Okay, welcome. Welcome to Crisis, Chaos, and Conflict. Part of the training is to be able to stand and deliver. And what that means is because of a crisis of addiction and the culture of addiction, it's not a 9 to 5 type job. It's like, shit, the shit has hit the fan now, stand and deliver. And we need to be okay with that. So we need to be okay with the culture of addiction, which is lots of swear words and politically incorrect stuff and antisocial behavior and all that wonderful stuff, combined with mental health and borderline personality and bipolar and depression and all sorts of wonderful things. Hello, Tanya. Would you like to check in?
Hi, it's nice to be back. Checking in. Um, ah, um, I feel like I've got my head up my ass. Yeah, a little bit stressed, but yeah, here.
Okay. Is it dark up there?
Is it dark? No, it's just busy.
Oh, okay. All right. So if it was light, it might be the sun shines out your ass. But anyway, let's. Okay. Sorry, I suddenly thought, oh my God, this isn't. Where am I going to? Just wind your neck in. Okay. So, Delray, I'm feeling a bit anxious about your vulnerability when you checked in. And my anxiety just kind of wants to check in on you. Um,
I'm okay, David. Thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, I just don't obviously like to show it, and it's only my fourth session, and I think I've literally broken down at every session.
So, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
For me, it's a bad thing.
Okay. Because?
Because it shows weakness.
Right. Okay. Well, there's a bullshit statement if I've ever heard one. Okay. That doesn't mean that you don't feel weakness, but it's not a weakness. What would be supportive for you? So this is
Um,
week 4 for you in this container, and
yeah,
we do.
no, I just like I originally wasn't going to log on, but I did,
Okay,
and I need this. So yeah, if I can just listen
just sit here and hang out.
and
Okay.
just yeah take in what everyone has to say.
All right. Can you give us some context around what happened on the weekend?
I don't want it, David.
Okay, no problem. Great. So good boundary setting there. And that's a nice way of saying mind your own fucking business, David. I'll be all right. I just want to hang out here and watch and listen and learn from that perspective. Yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. All right. So welcome to week 4 for you, Del Rey, and welcome to week 11 for I think everyone else. Is that correct? Tanya, did you also start 11 weeks ago?
I did, but I've missed a whole bunch that I need to catch up. I wanted to ask, are they available in kind of some sequential kind of order?
Yep, they are.
Okay,
They
all right.
they
On the group.
yeah, oh, which group? Which group? It's,
This
is it,
our
is there a
group.
WhatsApp group for this group?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, there
okay. So
is.
I've got a whole lot of groups in a community, and I
Okay.
don't know,
All
but
right.
I
No,
will.
I can check with Leanne, or are they archived in one particular place, or must I just scratch through the whole group and
No. So let's see.
So the
Oh,
group doesn't have links to the recordings.
okay. So let's
So
do.
there's no links to the recordings.
Let me just. What's this group called?
yeah. It's called Online CPRC. Is that correct?
Sounds right?
Yeah, Online CPRC S. What's the S for? September 2024.
Okay. I just posted the link to this recording.
Okay.
So from there we can get the history, and I'll get onto that today if I remember.
That'd be amazing if they can all be accessible
Okay.
in the, would they be in the media? Where would they arrive?
So there's a playlist that's been created that
Oh,
will
I
be created.
see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. So the way the community is structured is we've got 3 columns, if you like. We've got a Tuesday, which is community of practice, where people can come and practice various organization. We got this stream here, which is recovery coaching, where you guys are on a journey for 20 weeks, where we cover all 5 modules, the conversation, the continuum, the system, the 4Q model, and creating the container. And you guys are at week 11, which means you're around the system area. Delray, you're at week 4, which means you're coming out of the coaching conversation and moving into the continuums. Yep. Anessa's holding the container today, checking in, holding the space. So that means she's also practicing the last 4 weeks, which is creating the container. Bradley held it last week, I think. Mark's held it a couple of times. Josh, have you also held the container? I can't
I don't
remember.
think so. I don't know. No, I don't think I ever have.
Okay, cool. Well, be prepared, Brew. It's coming.
I'm
Yep.
always ready.
Yeah, cool. So that's what we do. And then my coaching style is very much we're in the process of coaching here. So there's the theory and the practice, and here we do the process. So we create the container, we check in, and then we see where the container wants to go. And then I try and bring in the course material for each individual as where they're at. Yeah, does that make sense? And I hope that's working for you all. I know Leanne is very structured and linear, and she likes to go, okay, now we're doing this, now we're doing this, now we're doing this, now we're doing this. I'm very, okay, now let's go and do this and yeah, and hopefully we both get out at the same end. Yep. All right, so Nessa, back to you. Where should we take this container?
I think I was just listening to you, David, and I was thinking that the sense that I'm getting from the container this morning is empathy. So there's some guys that are more in the joy, and others are in different places. But there's that theme of empathy that's coming through. So perhaps I don't know if anybody wants to talk a little bit about that, or if there's any specific topic that's very much on anybody's heart that they would like to unpack or go deeper in.
So let me build on top of that. So if we're working on the system, yep, and systems around a culture of addiction, how can we create more empathetic systems that are robust enough to bring cultural change. Yep. There's a lot of systems out there that are punitive, the prison system, or going off to a kind of a work camp and digging holes or things like that. There's type of harm reduction programs, things like that. But my sense is the system isn't as empathetic as if somebody's had diabetes, for example. There's still a lot of moral stigma and judgment around it. And there's a lot of frustration around the antisocial behavior that comes with people that are using drugs. Just go
I
to the
mean,
Jolly Roger on a Friday night down in Parkhurst.
I have for their chicken mayo tramezzini with avocado, but then I leave right afterwards because
Okay.
the butts like to fight there. But that's very interesting what you say, because like when you draw the comparison to like health things like diabetes and whatnot, I thought to myself, okay, what is the difference? Why would the system treat these people, these individuals in recovery differently? And the main thing that came to my mind was the whole, behavioral aspect of it and how difficult they can be to work with, the antisocial traits and characteristics. And that is the main difference. It can be difficult to work with people like that. And then I thought to myself, what kind of field do we have empathy for people that are working with very difficult personalities? Because maybe if there is an example of that, then I can, have a bit more of an understanding of how they deal with it. And then my sister came to mind. She teaches kids from grade 1 to 3. And I thought, holy shit, they totally have personality disorders. They're exactly the same. And they definitely, there's a little bit more empathy in there in how they treat children. And I suppose that can be a problematic line of thought because you don't want to kind of placate and treat addicts like children, but also to kind of have the empathy that just like children haven't built the tools to function in a way that's maybe a bit functional, some addicts haven't, and look at it with that empathic lens. But how to attack that on a system level, I'm not sure. Maybe it starts with the individual. I'm done.
Right, that's really triggered me. I could go off, but sorry, Inessa. I just see Delray's got her hand up and then Mark.
Did you not want to comment more, Dev?
I'm more curious to have your voice in the room.
Oh, okay. I am sure this is a difficult one because I sometimes find that I have too much empathy, doing this work, I'm not going to make it because I get so emotional. And then also with Josh was talking about the kids and stuff. I don't really have empathy as much for children as what I do for older people. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because I know a lot of people that don't have support in their old age. And I just kind of think the kids can make it, they're strong. And I don't know. But the empathy thing is a huge one. I kind of wish I didn't have as much. I'm done. Thanks.
Mark?
So we did a class here at the foundation around communities and the stigma that comes with around the word addict and how all the negative consequences that come from addiction lead a person to have this stigma, this persona in like normal people's minds of a person being a liar. See, like if they hear the word addicts, they have all these negative connotations or words that they associate with the person without even hearing their story or knowing them. There's ideas that a person is, if they're an addict, they're manipulative, they're selfish, they're immoral, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And it comes down to, in the class, finding acceptance, and for myself, I have to accept that if I'm in active addiction, then people are always going to hold me to those ideas or narratives. But if I choose to be in a system or in a process of recovery, then I can start to work on those things, and then people will no longer know me, hopefully, for the old way, and then seeing me for all the things I contribute to life now. So empathy, when it comes to empathy, I think as a coach, I think it's bringing awareness to the person, in recovery, that there are going to be those concerns or worries from people, but it's more, becoming accepting that was the past, and we're going to try and focus on a new way forward without sort of like holding ourselves stuck in that past narrative. Yeah, that's me.
Bradley.
Thanks, Dennis. Yeah, Mark, I'm listening to you speak now, Mark, and it's true. With that stigmatization around an addict. So, but I think also for the same thing is where an addict learns, it's behavioral things that need to be broken because they've learned it as the addiction grew within them. So they've learned to become a better liar, a better whatever, to feed that habit. But in that same sense of us as coaches, when there's a behavioral shift that we also need when we sit with someone, to think, okay, but don't class them because we think now they come out of something that's an addiction. This is their behavior. And I think that's where the empathy comes in. The empathy can only be built upon once we change our behavior as coaches or as people, growing in a relationship with someone that is going through an addiction or going through recovery. Can we become empathetic towards them? Because we also need to change our behavior towards them.
Yeah, I wanna agree with that, and I want to comment a little bit on what Bradley said. There is a difference between sympathy and empathy, and we often muddle them together. And sympathy is feeling sorry for somebody. Sympathy can run out quite quickly when somebody keeps on repeating the behavior, while empathy is ability to feel with the person. Whatever they're going through is real for them right now. And going through that with a person is something that it's very challenging. Let's face it, it's not an easy one. But that is something like in a faith-based organization, that's something we encourage people to do, though you don't see it a lot from churches. I know you don't, but in the ideal world, that's what we would be looking at. Delray.
I just wanted to say on that, you were talking about the empathy versus the sympathy. And I've been to so many horrible rehabs that I don't have any sympathy for myself, and I don't have any sympathy for anybody else. But I can empathize. If I've been through it, I can empathize. And it's just, it's really difficult, because where do I draw the line? Like, yeah.
Thank you for sharing with us. I think it is it's hard.
So let me jump in quickly. So Tonya, good catch for pointing out I statements. So when we speak for I and ourselves in that. Yeah. And then to go back to the original question is like, how can we make institutions more empathetic? Yep. So for example, the church is a great example. There's a lot to the sort of organizations that you were alluding to. Del Rey was I can see that you've been impacted. You have. Here I am saying I statements, and now I'm going, and you have, but institutional damage. Yeah, you've been traumatized by the institution. Would you agree with that? Is that correct? Okay. So Delray, what would recovery look like for you coming out of that?
It's a difficult question, Dave, but I think I've I've been to all those places. I need to put it behind me. And I also need to put the toxic working environment in a rehab behind me. So that I can move forward, so I can help everybody else going forward. I don't know why I hang on to it.
Well, when you find out, will you let me know? Because I also struggle with that. I personally have such kind of resentment still around how I've been impacted in this career, working in this sort of environment. And it's not an uncommon thing in organizations as well. You can take a hospital where the patients are treated well, but the nurses are absolutely terrible to each other, which is another kind of example.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can have a school where the teachers are fantastic with the kids, but in the staff room, it's a war zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's just it's very hypocritical.
yeah, and I think that's the thing that triggers me personally quite a bit. So I deliberately made a post on Sunday and stuck it on Facebook saying, I'm ready to receive amends. Yeah. Get your people to speak to my people and I'll receive your amends, which was a bit of a dig to kind of say, like, how come I've always got to be the big one to make amends when I'm feeling slighted?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's to do with your like your conscience and how you feel convicted.
Are you talking about me or are you talking about yourself?
No, me.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
So at
I'm
the end
sorry.
of the day, it's got to do with my conscience and the way that I feel about myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether
Okay.
you want to make it right for them or for you.
Okay. So if I reflect on myself, I think what my struggle is I think I'm struggling with pride and hubris in my psyche. There's like, oh God. And then that enables me, I guess, for trying to reframe it in a positive way, that enables me to work on my humility. And let me just tell you how fucking humble I am. God, I'm so humble. It's a joke, people. So for example, as well, I mean, where I'm working here in Middlesbrough, there's a lot of people that have been locked up in prison, and they've been they've kind of been institutionalized in the sense that they have a role of who they are. You know, they're criminals, they're gangsters, they're drug dealers, and they've got this label that creates a whole lot of identity for them. And when they come out of prison and to try and get into a culture of recovery, that label is kind of stripped from them. And then there's a immense vulnerability and identity crisis. So who am I if I'm not this? And then to work with someone like that, how do you recover? How do you get that individual to recover a new identity, a new person, a new being? And we can see that with a lot of stuff. There's the internal oppression that happens for people, where you believe what the oppressor told you, the oppressor goes away, and then you keep that oppression going amongst yourselves and other people within your community. So, for example, people that go to 12-step fellowships, yep, often when somebody starts to get better in their life and they decide to go out and get a relationship and get a job, other people in the fellowship say, oh, no, you can't get involved in a relationship. Oh, you're not ready for this yet. Oh, no, your recovery. Da, da, da. And there's a whole lot of messaging that's meant to be supportive, but actually it just perpetuates the problem or keeps the person down. In Australia, they call it tall poppy syndrome. If somebody kind of rises up too much, they come and cut the top of the poppy. In the corporate space where women get promoted into the boardroom, they call it queen bee syndrome. Yeah, where the woman then gets empowered and then she runs around and stings all the other up and coming women because there's a threat of like, fuck, I'm the queen bee here. Yeah, I've had to fight and sorry, am I still on track here with the system and recovery coaching?
A little bit, but with a bit of bunny trail. We'll be empathetic to you.
Thank you, Anissa.
Okay.
Tonya?
Sorry, can I? Oh, no.
Sorry, I don't know.
We'll go Tonya and then you, Mark.
I don't know how to raise the hand. I've completely forgotten.
Just go like that.
That's what I did. Yeah,
There we
okay.
go.
Don't know. All right. Thank you. So yeah, there's 2 points. I think I was reminded last week of of being in session with a client. Just the words that landed was, and it was a client that had recently relapsed, and the words that landed was like, love is the medicine. Yeah. So just to return to that, for myself, there's all the, and it's a complex situation where I'm seeing I'm seeing one person and they relapsed and another person that's connected to them somehow. And there's a lot of, well, there was some anger and resentment and, like rah, rah, rah from the one person to the other person who had relapsed. And
how can you do this to me?
Yeah, all of that. And anyway, so that's the one point. And then the second point is in terms of the systems. So I applied, I was like, let me check it out. And I applied for initially I just wanted some kind of consulting work at a particular recovery center here in Joburg. I've been looking for consulting work on and off as a therapist. I went in for the second interview, and then they offered me a role, a job. And towards the end of the conversation, they asked me, you know, what I would like, you know, to earn, and I gave them my number. And for a full-time role now, considering it's a full-time role, which I'm not really prepared to do, but then they said to me, this is their offer. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious? You know, the rate of pay was so, and this is an upmarket, you know, rehab, a full kind of space. There's 30 clients at the moment, upmarket, etc. Very nice space. And then they said that's the going rate for our counselors, and I was like, wow. This is
disgusting.
It was shocking, and
Disgusting.
it's disgusting. And I was like, that's, you know, I stopped being a school teacher 10 years ago because that's the salary I was getting. So yeah, so just to tie that back into, and there are 3 onboard counselors there, you know, like, yeah, and that's what they earn. And I'm like, how the fuck do you expect people to, like, you know, make a living doing that, pay their bills with that kind of money? And then I thought to myself, well, you know, just tying back into this conversation, it's like, well, in the system, the people who are employed, from what I can see, they are paid. They are like, the reward is so low, the incentive is so low. I would imagine that they walk around, you know, that the staff, and I can't speak for all the spaces. This is my experience of this particular one, that there's, you know, they're in survival. The staff are in survival. They're scraping to make ends meet. They have full schedules, and they're in, yeah. How can you, if you're in a survival state, and I'm assuming as, you know, I immediately felt stressed out. I was like, there's no way I can, you know, that's a third of the amount of money I need to get through the month to pay my bills. I can make, you know, I can make what I need to make coaching. Thank you very much. And more. So people, I mean, if I were to take that job, I would imagine myself, there would be resentment building, there would be grievances, there would be stress. There wouldn't be a culture, and that wouldn't be able to foster a culture of empathy and compassion and understanding amongst the system, the staff system, the backbones, the skeleton of the institution. And that obviously it trickles down, I would imagine, to the clients in the way that the staff, you know, how invested they are, how they show up, how present they are for those clients. And that has an impact on the whole system. So I don't know if that's relevant, but I think it might be. Yeah. So yeah, I can understand, you know, and then staff are overworked, there's compassion fatigue, and at the same time, you're not incentivized to, like, be really, you know, involved. I would imagine you're doing the bare minimum because you're getting paid scraps, you know, if, like, that's my sense of that space. Anyway, thanks for I ranted a bit there. I was like, it's disgusting.
So thank you, Tanya. I'm completely triggered, and I so get it. I so relate. I'll jump in a second. Sister Chuma, would you like to check in?
Morning, everybody. Sorry for the delay. When I was from my night shift, I passed somewhere, so I couldn't get home on time. I'm checking in, I'm feeling relaxed, and I'm looking forward for the training.
Great stuff. Thanks. All right, so I just want to come in on Tanya, if that's all right with everyone. Yeah, the treatment industry as a whole is very abusive to the people that work in it. And I have a double-edged sword here. One, because I own a clinic in Johannesburg and employ staff that are very poorly paid and do fantastic jobs, and they would never be rewarded financially for the amount of love and dedication that they give. And the challenge is and it's not because I take profits and run away with them and work people. The organization itself is a public benefit organization, and so it's very vocational in its work. And a lot of people personally have criticized me for training other people that have then gone out and opened rehabs that are then in competition with what we're doing in terms of having beds. So there's one thing doing something vocationally, and you can get a lot of faith-based organizations that are doing something vocationally, but that institution in itself is then abusive and is kind of using faith as a way to kind of I'm going to say punish clients and to abuse staff in a way that can be quite shadowy. In the commercial world, where people are doing things for profit, the same sort of abuse can happen as well. So let's try and get staff to work as much as they can, milk the patients for as much money as we can, and then take those profits and then just say that that's business and the way that we do things. And this creates ethical tension within the system. Yeah. Josh and Colleen, yeah, they're now trying to do masters and to get into to get into a master's, so they could get the golden ticket to be registered with the Health Professionals Council, to then get paid for hours from medical aids. Yeah. And then medical aids are limiting the amount of sessions somebody can have with a professional and saying you must heal this person in 6 sessions, because once their medical aid's up, then you've got to go private. So it becomes a whole big systemic challenge as well that we find ourselves in as coaches. Yeah. So Tonya, this is the am I saying your name right, by the way? Is it Tonya or Tanya?
It's actually Tonya. That's
Tonya.
preferred. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So fuck, that doesn't help me being dyslexic as well, but okay, Tonya. All right. But this conversation hooks me. It really does. It really does hook me. And why it hooks me the most is that the system in of itself is, for each dollar that you spend on this sort of approach, a recovery wellness approach, an educational approach, you save $7. On the criminal justice system, you save $4, and in the medical system, you save $3. Now, this is based on American statistics, the Surgeon General's report of 2016, the addiction crisis in America. And you can go and look at this report, and they've calculated this. So the evidence is, this isn't just David the do-gooder in Africa that's going to say, come on, people, let's do good. This is evidence-based research and the economics of this sort of stuff, yet it is so hard to kind of shift the system. And it really hooks me. I can feel I start to foam at the mouth here, and it's a difficult dance. It's a very difficult dance. But I promise you, if you're coming into this business to make money, you're better off going off and fixing computers.
David, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So my question would be, if the system doesn't provide for us coaches an environment that is flourishing, how can we provide it for ourselves?
Okay, so that's the $1 million question. And let's just talk about coaching, actually. Yeah. And this specific training, yeah, this specific training offers a hell of a lot for very little money in comparison to other coaching trainings that are out there. There are lots of like ICF accredited and this and that. And I mean, just for me, just to do my master's in coaching cost me 120,000 Rand. And just to do the ICF accredited coaching back in 2007 cost me, I think it was $7,000. Or maybe it was 10,000. It was equivalent to of about 90,000 Rand as well. Yeah. And what we offer in comparison to that is peanuts. So people really pay peanuts for this and they get a hell of a lot more. And then there's a psychological thing of like, well, why is it so cheap? It can't be that good. You know, it's there's I mean, this really gets me triggered. I mean, I've gone out of coaching mode and now I'm in activist mode. I'm going to start fucking toying outside the Premier Inn here in Middlesbrough in a second. But it does hook me. Josh.
I think there's a lot of value in us seeing how it hooks you, because I think it speaks to what we are talking about, which is just how the system is structured and how it feels. I mean, I can't speak to coaching, but what I can say about at least clinical selections is that it does often feel like a competition of like, how much shit can you take? Like, how much are you willing to go through the worst experience of your life? I remember one of my first interviews at Bert's, them very heavily implying, which I understand the intent, like it's to see if I can be triggered and how I handle that and how mature I am in identifying those triggers. But they kept on mentioning that the course was known as the divorce course. And I brought up my partner when talking about my support systems. And I found that a bit triggering for them to just like have that statement to be like, okay, cool. Your grand sweeping idea is that everyone who starts this course is in a relationship, it ends. And they just kept on hammering me on that. And I was upset because it took up the majority of our interview time. And I left with this feeling of they want to see how willing I am to let this ruin my fucking life. That's what it felt like. And I know Kayleen shares a lot of those sentiments. Kayleen, if you're watching this later, you can comment. But I mean, I know even now with this work that Kayleen's doing, this volunteer work that she's doing now, it's, you know, she's doing it out of her own accord. She's using her own resources to do that. And it sucks because we don't have another option. So when like Inessa poses that question, I'm kind of like, okay, cool. That's great. We can talk about that forever because I don't know the solution. Sorry, a bit of a ramble there. No, I'm not sorry. Thank you for letting me speak, everyone.
So anybody else got any insight? So if I were just to take it again to repeat what we're talking about the need for empathy and for taking care of ourselves, empathy for ourselves and taking care of ourselves, which system doesn't provide. So how can we as coaches, how can I as coach take the make sure that I'm not just surviving, but I'm flourishing? What can I put in place in my life? Tanya, you are muted.
Oh, yeah, thanks. No, I was just joking. A whole bunch of side hustles. Which I'm finding myself having to do. But also, yeah, as coaches, there's, we are independent, we are free agents. We're not, we can choose to be in the system. And I think I just dipped my toe into that system, the week before, and I was like, oh my God, that water is ice cold. And then what it did for me, though, was it really reaffirmed my choice and my, I suppose, conviction and determination to continue to invest in my business and my practice, and to really grow that business, and to find other ways of other avenues for the coaching business to take off, to thrive. Yeah, so it got me into a creative space, an innovative space, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this on my own. I don't need a paycheck. I don't want to be dependent on anyone else. I don't want to have to follow their schedule. I can take leave when I want. I can work my own schedule. I can work from anywhere. I've been in Cape Town for 2 weeks, and I did my calls from Cape Town. So I was like, this is really what I'm choosing. So how can I make it work for me in a way that it sustains me, and that it continues to be rewarding and fulfilling and meaningful work?
Sorry, I lost the internet connection for a moment. So I missed some of what you were saying, but I liked, from what I heard, I liked when you were talking about determining your own creative ways of building your own practice and determining what that would take. Anybody else? Yeah, Josh.
I mean, I think the reason why I'm attracted to the idea of like pursuing a master's through like a university and doing that is because what I will say is there is a lot of support in those systems once you're in. You have a supervisor that you consult with everything, and you have your own therapy that you get put into. Some universities do that. So there is a lot of support, and I think the main thing for me is ensuring that I have a strong support network, acknowledging that I can't do everything on my own. I can get into a very negative headspace, and sometimes I need someone to pull me out of that hopelessness and give me a bit of perspective, because I'm good at that. I think actively reflecting, especially with someone else that's maybe in the same line of work, is very important. And then I laughed when Tony had said that we have to have side hustles, and I think that is so funny, because that kind of implies that we don't really want to. Well, we want to, but we can't really. We have no power in fixing the system and how it operates. So what do? Is we pull ourselves out of the system a little bit and then supplement it elsewhere, and that makes me very sad. But like, that is the reality of it all. So I think support networks are very important. Being in touch with yourself and being able to pull yourself out when you can, but not everyone can afford to do that. So it's very tricky. And we've had a lot of conversations around this, and like, how do you support yourself? This is very similar to the self-care thing. And I think it's not really a definitive thing. I think it depends on your circumstance and your situation. If I was someone like David, I'd probably get some kind of satisfaction out of feeling like I'm overworked, as if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know if I'm picking up on that, but I had to look up the word you used, hubris. Self-confident, and I looked it up. And I was like, okay, that's not how you come across, but interesting. Yeah.
You should see the debating committee in my head, mate. And another thing, if we really kind of zoom out on this as well, and then look at mental health and countries, the way that this works. If you look at kind of Scandinavian countries and European countries, their systems are a lot more caring and nurturing to everyone within it, as opposed to the kind of American English centric approach. And the American way is very good at marketing to the world. Yeah, but actually when you dig deeper, so for example, the Swedes were doing harm reduction in the late 60s for when heroin started to come in. They had methadone programs, they had needle exchanges, they had safe consumption rooms back in the late 60s, and their social system there, the taxes is people are quite heavily taxed, but the social care is pretty fantastic. And the education system is pretty fantastic, and the schooling's pretty, but it doesn't really get bragged about much. Yeah. And then I can see it when the Dutch people come over to us for treatment. It's like they're very highly educated individuals. And I think the one thing that they actually learn from coming over to Africa is a bit of like, oh, fuck, we're actually really, really blessed where we are. How come we're so miserable? And then these people in Africa have got such little, but yet they're so happy. So I certainly know when the international clients go to the foundation, what they experience in terms of compassion and care from the staff there is really life-changing for them, in the sense of like, oh shit, we better get some gratitude with what we got. Oh. Sister Chuma, you've been very quiet today. Bring your wisdom.
No, I'm following.
I know.
I've got nothing much to say. Because I've never been a coach in my life. That's why I'm in the training. But taking from what you just recently said, like you cannot have much to offer, but the compassion and the love that you show to client, it means a lot to them. And also it means a lot to them in terms of their recovery, because we always say recovery is a journey. It's not a one-day thing or a 3 months thing. It's a journey through someone's life. You can go for years while you are still recovering. So at the foundation clinic, like you said, you have a clinic in Joburg where I'm working. We really try our best to offer the liquid that we have to the clients which are there. We are going through so much in their lives, So the liquid that we offer, it means a lot to them. It means really a lot to them. The therapeutic team that is there, it's a wonderful team. Some people in other rehab centers, when you go there for primal treatment, once your days are finished, it's a goodbye. They'll never check on you. They never see how you're progressing. But at the foundation clinic, we have a program, the wellness program, where after you're discharged from your primal treatment program, you come back for wellness programs up to 11 months, which means it's a year. We'll be tracking you up to almost a year, so that we see how you are doing in the outside world. Because recovery during primal treatment program, it's easy because you are in a container where you are with the people with similar problems, you understand each other, people are not judging you. But the moment you are discharged and go back into the real world, things change. So we track people, we encourage them to come back for wellness for the next 11 months. So it can be a small clinic, but it's offering much. in terms of recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Chuma. That was very insightful about how the clinic works and the wonderful work that they're doing in follow-ups. David, is there anything else you wanted to touch on or comment before we take a break? Is David frozen? Okay.
I hope he's frozen,
Yeah.
otherwise this is very intimidating.
I know. I was thinking he looks very very defensive, and then off you go. It's okay. All right. So let's take a break. He took offense. I'll have to apologize afterwards. Let's take a break. Do 10 minutes. And come together at 10 past. Is that good? All right. Awesome.
Thank you, Nessa.
Yo, is anyone there?
Yes, we're here. We missed you.
I lost you. I know my internet completely collapsed. I've had to reboot my phone and everything.
We lost you in the position where you were sitting like this.
Oh,
So we all got
I
worried that
was,
you were
I was,
sitting like this for a long time.
I was so into it. I was so like, oh. Okay. So Nessa, listen, I'm going to hand the container over. Are we still, we are still streaming. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to hand the container over to you. Let me make you full host. There we go.
I think when you log off, it becomes I become a host.
Yeah, okay, so
There
you're
we
now
go.
still the full host. Yeah. So what are you learning so far from the container today?
I'm learning that Mark is bored with the conversation.
Oh,
I don't
is
think
he?
it's very relevant to him. I don't know. I'm just watching the body language. I don't know how relevant it is to him. So there's a need to include everybody in the art of including everybody in the conversation is a bit tricky at this point. I think some of the people in the group are very invested in the topic, but it's not relevant to everybody. So that needs to turn around a little bit. I do find it a little challenging being kind of caught off guard. I know there's a need for flexibility and fluidity of let's just see where we go. But my frame of mind wasn't on leading, so I had to scramble a little bit. I'm still scrambling.
So instead of
it's
leading, rather use the word holding.
a holding. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the moment it feels a little slippery. The holding itself is like a bit
Great
of a okay,
metaphor.
how do I yeah. So
Great metaphor.
yeah, yeah. So it's challenging. It's definitely challenging in that way. Also in the Zoom environment. I think in the physical environment it's a little bit easier to read maybe the group or for people to make small comments and then you can build up on that. Yeah, to be honest, I'm completely lost as to where to take the next hour.
Okay.
Mostly because not for the lack of asking questions, but mostly because you're not going to be there to guide us with the actual content of. I mean, we can go on bunny trails, but to bring it back to okay, this is actually what we're learning, and this is how it should be. That's a bit challenging. I have considered
Okay.
popping out and said let's practice, but yeah.
So coaching as a skill set is used to shift culture. And we need to stay in a culture of recovery and resilience ourselves. And we go into a culture of addiction to try and shift that culture, to use coaching as a way to influence culture. Okay. And we've spoken about different types of treatment systems, different faith-based organizations, governments, countries, things like that. Yeah. Tanya, did I say it right now? Spoke about her personal experience going to work at a facility, that stuff. No, I think we're on track. Mark, are you bored and miserable? Are you not having a nice time because you look good?
No, I just wanted to because I heard in on your little gossip about me. No, I'm joking. And it's nothing about that. I think I'm slightly triggered in a sense about I think how the session started and just my own sort of like experience at the moment of feeling a bit in limbo at my current state in recovery. I mean, I have so many outside things happening, but I feel kind of like stuck in like so like at the foundation. I've done all the classes, I've got all the knowledge. I do so much, but yet I feel like my days are pretty empty and challenging when I'm don't have much to fill in between having things at the end of the day. So my days are kind of frustrating at this point, and I'm like contemplating, where do I go from here? What is the best way forward? How can I fill my day? And then, trying to not bring my frustrations in, but clearly my body language is telling of where I'm at emotionally. So, yeah.
Mark, it sounds like you got a life, huh?
I think to say I do, and I've created a healthy lifestyle for myself. I think the rebellious addict in me sometimes gets frustrated with things like curfews and some of the restraints that I have, and limitations to what I can fully immerse myself in, and I'm like wanting to grapple with that all the time, but we are trying to move forward.
So just to, I'm just going to stick around for a little bit, Anessa, just because, like institutionally, what you're experiencing, Mark, is completely appropriate for where you are, like restless, angry. I want to like expand and move on and kind of get a life. And when clients start to feel like that in the rehab, we start to know they're getting ready to move on. Yep. And like, so things like curfew and that sort of stuff needs to be maintained in the facility for the people that are on the journey. So you're coming towards the end of your journey. Yeah. What we got to be careful of is you going out there and fucking it up just because it's so alien. Like, who am I now? Let me go back and play the role that I used, like, the fuck up son that's kind of gay, that's, always lets us down, to play into that narrative. Be cautious of that. How's the pole dancing going?
It's my saving grace. I'm obsessed. I go like literally almost every day of the week.
Okay.
I'm like integrating myself in that community. I'm making new friends. I'm going to go and do several of the people that I do pole dancing with. I'm now going to go to their homes to do hair, like their hair from home, mobile hair stylist kind of situation.
Great. Okay.
So yeah, I have a lot going on, but I am very like mindful of the fact that I do need to put my recovery first and foremost. I have another thing where like you're speaking to that idea of where in recovery there's all those like things where they say don't get into a relationship. I kind of started seeing someone 8 months into this.
Oh, you go, girl. Fantastic.
So yeah, and things are.
Who are you seeing?
So it's this other Portuguese boy named Marco that I met on Facebook, and I think that's the main thing. And so I went on a date with him, and then I was like, oh shit, it's 9:30. I have to be back at the clinic by 10.
Okay, all
And
right.
he looked at me with this look of, oh really? You have to cut this short now when we're having so much fun? And I was like, so it's things like that. But he is supportive of this, and we're taking it very, very slow. But I am
whatever. You're a method pole dancer. Don't talk shit taking it slow.
Well, I'm trying to. I've already said, listen, there's several bases that we need to.
Yeah. Falling in love is the most intoxicating drug of the lot, mate.
No, I know. But I have outed myself in the wellness circle and kind of been like, I am mindful of the fact that, like what you say, it is intoxicating.
How many people had an opinion?
Surprisingly, everyone in the wellness side of things are very supportive because they see how much I'm doing for my recovery and how stable I seem to be, or am trying to be. But I do have some friends in the addiction, like the 12-step side of things, that were like, God, you're supposed to be a year before you even think about that, And I was like, well, I mean, I just wasn't looking for it, and it kind of happened. And I say exactly what you're saying. They tried to cut me off and say that, you are jeopardizing your recovery, you are not following suggestions, and this is the telltale signs of relapse. And I was like, I don't really feel that way. So I'm mindful of that. It can be, when you focus on someone else more than you focus on yourself, that's the way it can be dangerous, I suppose. But I mean, I have balance.
Does your
Somewhat.
boyfriend know about your past?
He does, yes.
Okay,
I
so
have-
you're open
yeah.
about your recovery. You're telling him that you're a fucking mad meth head and you're fucking in a rehab and you're taking it a day at a time and you fucking love a bit of pole dancing and you're trying to work out what life's about.
And that I have false teeth. So
And you got false teeth. Jesus Christ.
yeah, so that's yeah. So and also so he's a stable person with a job and a car and a house and 2 cats, and he works at a bar on the weekends. So I was like, you know what, I for the next foreseeable future, I will see you at like places. We'll go for dinners. We'll watch movies. Your bar job is your separate
All the
lifestyle.
plans, all the fucking plans. What did this?
Yeah.
What did that?
But I mean, I could be that person that's like finding excuses to go and join him at the club, but that is a side that I'm not going to be ready for the foreseeable future to just jump into. So we have our independent lives that are like that are
So
important.
what if you negotiated with the therapeutic team there? Guys, I'd like a night out.
Oh, so that's where we're at. So tomorrow night,
Okay.
tomorrow night we're going for sushi and a movie, and then I will sleep over at his house, which I did last week. And then I came back, and the first thing as I walked in the door, they're like with the cup, come. It's just a tumor,
Okay.
actually.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you're getting support, and you've got the safety of a container that's kind of keeping you like, okay.
So that's why I'm very grateful that I'm at that point where we can speak openly and honestly, and I have the safety net to come back to, and yeah. So I know I've checked in sounding very don't know what the hell I'm doing or feeling, but
How are you feeling? How are you feeling now, Mark, that you've got this off your chest?
No, I actually feel a lot more relaxed and chilled about it. Now I'm like,
I can see your body language is just so, oh. All right. Okay. So, Mark, thanks for that. Now I've got a bit of kind of context. Me and Anessa can understand what's going on. All right. So, Anessa, over to you. The container's yours. Thank you all, everyone, for coming. I really, really, really appreciate you guys showing up and, working in this space. Yeah. And I hope you all win the lottery because you ain't going to make it. Yeah, no. Okay. Bye, crypto. All right, everyone. I'll see you later. Thanks. A lot of love.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
David.
See you all next
Yeah.
week. Bye.
Okay, everyone. So, would you like to check in? Let's do a check-in. We had this impromptu pull into the container just now. Josh, would you like to start?
100%. Thanks, Vanessa. Josh checking in, feeling good, feeling excited. Yeah, I feel like this is a great container, so I'm excited to see what we come up with and where we go with it and where we guide Vanessa, where she guides us. So I'm feeling optimistic and excited. Yeah, and I'm going to tag Bradley.
Thanks, Josh. Bradley checking in. I think thanks, Mark. With you just now sharing there, I think it just it opened up the container. So I'm feeling also in a way just looking forward to where we're moving from here. So over to Tonya.
I'm checking in defiant. I don't subscribe to that thing that was just said. We're gonna make it, guys. We're gonna be just fine. Tagging Chuma.
Sister Chuma, you just muted yourself.
Checking in, feeling more relaxed, and I'm happy for Mark. What he has shared in the container, I'm actually happy for him. I think things are lightening up now, so I'm looking forward to finishing this session in a high-spirited note. I'm taking Mark.
Thank you, Sister Chuma. I'm checking in, feeling joyful, a little bit more relaxed. I was feeling a little triggered earlier, but yeah, excited. And then I think that's everyone.
Yeah, and I'm checking in, feeling curious as to where we're going to go. So where do you guys want to go?
Josh looks like he's got pearls of wisdom for us.
I'm curious. I've got a question.
We'll be curious with you. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is it's a I'm just yeah, from an observer, I'm just wearing my therapist coach hat. I want to ask Mark how, and I don't know what, like, perhaps it's the ethos of the space, because I don't find myself in those spaces, and it's possibly also connected to the philosophy, I suppose, or the context of the AANA stuff, the rooms, like referring to people that are in recovery. For example, when you're, and this is my understanding, I haven't been in those spaces, you continue to identify as the addict. Even when you're in recovery, you can be months or years into recovery, and in an AANA context, you still introduce yourself, right? Hi, I am XYZ, I'm an addict. I'm curious, Mark, when David refers to you as a method, as a raging method and all of that stuff, how does it make you feel right now? I mean, in that moment, does it, is there, he's doing that on the assumption that you still identify to that, as that, to that role, to that part of you that you're moving away from. You might be somewhere in the middle, but you're moving away from that role you were playing, that part that was presenting itself in that particular way, and you're moving towards a new identity. I'm just wondering.
I think that is a great question, Tonya.
Okay.
I think, well, first, I just want to say, I think the reason why at meetings people, or there's an ethos of identifying as an addict or an alcoholic before the meeting, is that we want to be mindful and of the past, and have a degree of acceptance around the chaos and conflict that did play a major part in our lives. Some people at meetings will, I think the ones that feel some sort of shame and guilt around that past and are very proud of where they are in their recovery process, they'll use the word, hi, I'm Mark, I'm a recovering or recovered addict. I don't take any offense or feel any sort of way when David does joke to that, because I was telling someone, or actually, I chair a meeting on a Monday night here at the clinic, and I try to bring an awareness to the people that, for me in my life, for the majority of my adolescence or teenage to young adulthood, drugs was the primary sort of thing in my process. It became my identity, and I don't feel any more shame or guilt around it. I've done a lot of work on myself and stuff. But for me to say that, to try and always like hold myself account, like in this victim mode of, oh, people see me as this addict, this shameful meth head that lost all his teeth because of his addiction. I think I wouldn't move anywhere if I stayed in that victim role. But it was a big part of my life. I have done a lot of shameful things because of my dependence on it at that stage in my life. But now where I'm going, I am in a process of recovery, but also in a process of finding myself and doing things that I never would have done if I was still in that culture of addiction. I wouldn't be pole dancing because I wouldn't be able to afford it, or I wouldn't have the support of my family that are helping me to have that hobby at this present time. And also, like I've shared in the group before, I think I'm more shameful of the fact that I was a prostitute basically to finance my addiction for better part of 10 years. And now I am, for the first time, having healthy connections with someone. I'm having intimacy and an affection and connection, whereas I was not ever experiencing that while I was in that cultural addiction. So I'm more grateful. But also, just one last thing I want to add to that is that I'm actually grateful to a degree for my addiction. It's given me a lot of lived experience. It's given me a lot of personal growth and strength, knowing where I came from and some of the things that I've survived or encountered. It's given me. I look at my addiction, and for the better part of it, I'm grateful actually that I've got that lived experience to a degree. So I'm more grateful to be an addict than not to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Can I just, thank you for helping me understand that. That there you have an option, in meetings. Okay, I didn't, then that's an oversight on my part. Because I find myself with clients in coaching sessions having them reframe that. So when they do self-refer as the addict, I would encourage them to reframe that and find other ways of speaking back to the self, the current self. There's just something about those, like a repeat, like there's something about those neural pathways needing to be reprogrammed or overlaid with new identities, with new thoughts, with a new personality. So ultimately, I'm just curious about that. That was helpful. Thank you.
Josh?
I mean, I had a lot of what Tonya just described about like reframing the idea of identifying as an addict is something that I would have been drawn towards doing, because at least it makes sense for me. But I think the more I looked at it for myself, I can only speak for myself, I realized there was at least this unconscious or underlying bias for what I thought of as the term, like being an addict, and how I wouldn't want people to associate with that term because I had my own connotations of what that meant. So I think for me, at least, it's about like being wary of putting my own thoughts and feelings onto what it means to be something and what it looks like for them, by like, initiating the idea that they should maybe reframe that. But I suppose that could be very helpful if you you pick up on the idea that that term is holding them back and they're over-identifying with it. So all about being like conscious of that, you know, whether that's something that would be helpful for them or not. And I think to comment on what Mark said, I'm very curious to know for you if you were more easily able to identify as being an addict and being comfortable with that while using, or is it something you're more comfortable with now because it feels like something you're far removed from and you're past it, you know? Like kind of acknowledging when you're a toddler, oh, I was a brat and I was a crybaby. I'm okay with saying that because it's my past and I was a child. And I'm curious how you feel about that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Let me just lower this hand. The other thing is that I wanted to say on that, which you both just sort of triggered for me, is that when I go out into the world, like when I went to pole dancing specifically, I had a choice of how I would identify. You know, I didn't have to tell people, oh, listen, hi, I'm Mark, I'm an addict. But there was this weird dynamic which happened where, you know, I came to them, and because I'm in a process of being vulnerable and authentic with people, I ended up telling, as I got closer to the people there, I didn't necessarily say, hi, I'm an addict. I mean, I told them I'm in recovery. And I found a couple of the people, actually, I think it was last week or the week before, they immediately assumed, by seeing that I'm sort of like not what a typical addict looks like, they immediately assumed I was an alcoholic. They thought that they all said to me, oh, so you don't drink anymore? And I was like, oh wow, okay, so that they don't see the addict. Oh great. So I'm not gonna lie, I'll be honest with you guys. I kind of was like, yeah, no, my alcoholism was rough. And then you know, I just decided I needed to. So I actually was being a little bit inauthentic because I didn't come out and say, yeah, I'm that method. But I've tried to reinforce if I do open up to people that I'm in recovery. I'm choosing to find myself and work on myself. I think it's only in the NA and AA circles where we all want to identify as having a common problem and we all have a disease. I mean, that's another thing that I struggle to sometimes wrap my head around, is the whole disease concept. It's like, okay, so if you've got diabetes, you take insulin, you're fine. You've got cancer, you go for chemo. I mean, within NA and AA, we say we've got a disease of addiction. So now meetings and higher power, and it's a spiritual malady. That's what they like to talk about. And yet we all sit in those meetings and we say, yeah, we're struggling to find our connection with our higher power and stuff. So yeah, anyway, in the real world, I identify as Mark. And if I get close to a person, I tell them I'm in a process of recovery, and clearly now they assume that I'm an alcoholic. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mark. That's actually quite insightful for us. Who in the container has been through some kind of a recovery program or rehab program before? Okay, so for those who've been, I have a question. So there's obviously, like we've touched now, there's a bunch of different programs, and some of them assume you're alcoholic or an addict, and then they work with hi, I'm an addict, like what Tanya has reached out now. And then the other programs and the other things that what we're learning with coaching is that we start with assumption that we're building the culture of recovery, and you're working from wellness into wellness. Spectrum, what you call it, the continuum. So the question would be, what difference did it make if you've been part of both programs? What difference did it make going through a program that that doesn't allow for that wellness and culture of recovery, generating that? And having that, what was the difference, or what would have been the difference if you had an opportunity to go through a program that creates that culture of recovery? Go ahead, Mark.
I just wanted to talk a little tell you guys a little bit about the wellness program that Sister Chima was talking about. In other rehabs that I've gone to, it's always been the Minnesota model where they deal with you've got a problem, you've got an addiction problem, here's the 12 steps, get yourself a sponsor, go to meetings, and that's the only way that they believe you can recover. Here at the foundation, like Sister Chima was saying, there's a therapeutic team. You've got like a 3-week course, which is broken up into 3 stages. Like your first week is spiritual principles. You learn, all the spiritual principles and how you can apply them into your daily life. Then you've got a week where all the classes are on community and growth and your retail, your recovery capital, things that how you can go back into your different communities or find new communities that are going to get to be well. And then the 3rd week, they deal with the brain and the mind, like how addiction affects those neurotransmitters that Tanya was talking about, how your brain takes the time to heal and get better. But then after those 3 weeks and you leave, like Sister Chima was saying again, they give you the option of coming every single day between the hours of 4 and 6. We sit in a group of about 20 or 30 people, which is usually the past clients or people, outpatients, or whatever the case is. Leanne facilitates that group. And she basically she'll ask people where are they at in their processes, how's things at work. She talks about triggers. She talks about relapse prevention tools. It's such I've never ever had that before. You see people from all walks of life they come in, they check in and they say, something as simple as road rage. They come to the group, they've just had an altercation in the road and they feel extremely triggered and they have aggression and she unpacks that. And then people give their experiences of where they're at. And there's some people that come literally every single day. They're home, they're working, they've got their kids, their lives, and every single day they come back and they say, I struggled with an altercation with my wife, or I'm struggling with the family system, and they get support, and it's totally different. We don't identify as addict. We check in with our name and our feeling, and we just real people talking about real problems and getting real insight from a group of people that are working together, and it's so helpful. It's fantastic.
Wow, that's
and
really,
Leanne basically coaches everyone. Like I see firsthand as someone aspiring to be a coach, how she has to hold the space for 30 people and be coaching people constantly without saying, I'm coaching you. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Sure. Josh?
So from my experience, I was in a Catholic school, staunch Catholic school. Me and Mark actually went to the same high school, we discovered in our sessions. So they had an outreach program for kids called the DARE program. And that program in itself and how it informs teenagers was very cynical and very accusatory. And I don't think that worked. But like at the age of 15, I got a bit involved with narcotics. My teachers picked up on it, they tested me, and what my school decided to do as part of that DARE program is to send me to a psychologist. And I went there, and what was great about it, to answer the question of identifying as an addict or not, is she and I think this is why I really identify with what Tonya said about reframing it, is because she did that for me in a very subtle way. She never really treated me like an addict. And I think because of that, I never really thought of myself as one. I definitely developed misuse habits, but just seeing the way she treated me, and she always asked me, what do you understand about this drug? It was very client-led. And I feel like that really helped me. I feel like I never identified as an addict, so I never kind of held that expectation of myself becoming that. I don't know. And then my other experience was doing NA stuff and being surrounded by people that are, maybe at a different stage in their recovery, for me was very triggering. It made me feel like, oh, wow, am I the same as these people? And then having to go around and, stand up and say that you're an addict, I found that odd. It felt like something I didn't want to do. It felt like I was an imposter. And I feel like, it can be very hard for people to admit that they're an addict. And I think if that's something that people are battling with, it can be helpful to go into a space where you don't have to really use that terminology if you don't want to. Because maybe that in itself prevents you from getting help, to have to go there and say, oh, no, I feel like I'm an addict. Maybe you can work up to the idea, I don't know. That's my experience.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Mark and Joshua. So, guys, we have 20 more minutes. Any more questions? Any other directions you want to go to? Any more insights that you want to add? Bradley, you look like you're looking for your unmute button.
Yeah, no, I was just listening to everyone, and I think talking on the subject of an addict, like we've been saying the whole time, there's so stigmatization around the word addict. But I think if you were to sit with someone and someone introduces himself and says, "Look, I'm an addict," I think the point is always to ask, like, but now what is it about addict that makes you say that you're an addict? And I think of a lot of times, because I've got a cousin of mine also, and he believes like he's also come out of years and years of misuse of drugs. But for him, he said, "But I'm not an addict. I was, yes, but he doesn't like to stigmatize himself as an addict because he's moved away from that." And I think just personally for me, it's that thing of what is it? What does that word actually mean for me? Does it mean in some way I'm stuck there? I can't see myself getting out of it. That's why I call myself that. Because then it kind of, I'm okay if I slip back, because that's kind of what I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to add to that, Bradley. I love the way that you're thinking about it, because for me, I think it all depends in when you're identifying as an addict, what is it? Is it you claiming a part of your past, like the way that Mark does, by being like, I'm proud of that. It's made me resilient. It's made me who I am. Are you doing it to signify to others that you're potentially, like, you could potentially be triggered and that you're in recovery? Is it something that you're doing to aid your recovery? Or are you doing it because you're kind of sitting in this rut of like, okay, that's who I am, that's who I'll always be, and you're waiting to relapse? I think you really have to do, as Bradley said, think to yourself, what does that word mean for you? And what purpose is it serving by doing that? And I think that's why I don't know, I'm getting the sense that we're all open to the idea of everyone choosing how they identify. And I feel like that's the sentiment we get, especially if we're thinking of coaching as being very client driven. I think when it comes to how they identify, that should also be.
Tanya, what are your thoughts? No thoughts? Okay, okay.
I've contributed on this topic. Have we moved on to a different topic?
No.
No, okay.
No, we haven't. The guys were just sharing. So the guys were just sharing more from personal perspective rather than coach perspective.
Oh, the personal, yes, we're there. So yes, are we still on the previous, and we're linking into this? I did outpatient program at the Foundation Clinic. That was my recovery, and I didn't go to primary care. I also used various alternative holistic methods to treat myself, to treat my addiction, and those were really effective. And then I never quite got onto that. I mean, I was definitely addicted, and for many years. So I mean, I would fall into that category. I would be, a termed addict. I didn't, however, choose to identify with that in my recovery. It was just something that early on didn't speak to me, like it's just, to attach to that. But definitely substance dependent, and and the word addict means enslaved in Latin, so it's an appropriate term, You know, we get to that point where I got to that point where I was completely enslaved to my substance of choice. Yeah, I think if the person is comfortable referring self-referring in that way, then it might be for the coach. I would check in. I would ask, you know, is there something you're comfortable with? This particular term, do you refer to yourself? Do you know? And then if that's the case, it could be used, you know, it could be appropriate in session. I think also part of David is ingest, you know, you know, but yeah. I think that's all I want to add now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Chuma, in your observation of people that work through out of culture of addiction into the culture of recovery, how does the have a nurturing recovery culture, how does it impact your clients? Oh, you just muted yourself.
Okay, yeah. At the foundation clinic there, I think most clients or most patients that we have, during the course of their stay, they show like some positive attitude towards recovery. Maybe it's because of the container they will be in, you know, they are in an enclosed space, receiving all the necessary information, the necessary support they are receiving. So it's like they are doing well when they're in the container. And then when they are discharged, especially those that do not come for wellness program, most of them, they quickly go back to relapse, maybe a month or 2 months post-discharge, you know. So that's why later, like they introduced this wellness program to say life does not end on the 3 weeks program that you receive while at least you are an inpatient. You have to come back so that at least you find value in yourself, you vent out whatever is troubling you in the environment or in the container that you are staying in at home, and you receive the necessary support and information from the coaches or the facilitators that will be present like during the wellness programs. So like we're doing quite a good job, because most people they're recommending themselves to come into that center for their recovery wellness, you know, because of that program. And it's a holistic one, like Tanya said, that she did it holistically, or at least she was away from the clinic. So in the clinic, we offer the holistic approach of looking at an individual, like we're giving appropriate individualized care. We don't like envelope everyone into that word recovery. You know, we give it like individual care to each person so that they recover fully. And then going back to what Mark said about when they're in NA meeting or AA meeting, addressing themselves as an addict. I think it all depends on the container that you are at, or in the environment that you are at. You know, like I was taking to the experience of like, maybe you are to give, you are to be a motivational speaker, maybe to teenagers at school. Sometimes it's appropriate, or it's necessary for them to know that you were once an addict, but look at how I am now. I recovered fully. I now have this. I've got a business. I've got this and that. So I think it depends on where you are and how you address yourself in that way of like, I'm an addict, or I'm a recovering addict, or I was an addict. So it depends on where you are exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. That's that's very insightful. Actually, to have that little glimpse into the system of foundation clinics for us who have got no experience with it, I think is quite helpful. So what I'm hearing, all of you kind of touching a little bit, is almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a need for the guys that go through recovery. There's a need for them to take that recovery culture out of the recovery program and more into their life and kind of stretch it out into that. And it would be interesting. Not everybody obviously got the opportunity to be part of wellness program for a year or have those check-ins, but it would be very interesting to maybe, I don't know even if we have time to discuss, but maybe just to touch on what those things are that you can put in place for yourself to create that recovery culture, because it obviously affects so many things, your family that you go home to, if you have home to go back to, or family or whatever. So there's just so many different things. So any thoughts on that?
No answers, but like what I will say is like you try and enter a culture of recovery, and then you go into the real world, which I see as a world of addiction, a culture of addiction. So I can imagine how difficult that can be. And then I also have like a lot of curiosity. I mean, I love the idea of, seeing clients after they're done with their recovery program and what they do at Sister Chuma's center. But I'm sure there's also a lifespan to that they're not really staying there and getting checkups and that assistance for years upon years upon years, unless I'm wrong. So I'm also curious as to know, when does that end and how does that taper off? And yeah, just more questions than answers.
Sorry, I dropped my internet dropped me. Josh, do you mind to repeat what you just said?
I just said that I noticed the thought that came to mind is that after they leave the center and they get this help, when they're in the world of addiction, like that must have a lifespan. I don't imagine that they see the center until they're in a retirement home. So I'm just curious as to like if that ever tapers off and how they do that. So I had more questions than answers really, Anessa.
Mark?
So I'll say so usually people come in here for like a 21-day program because that's what the medical aid will cover. It is a private clinic. So if the medical aid doesn't cover, then the fee is quite high. But for myself, it's more my parents' desire than mine. They kind of this time said to me that they wanted to see me in long-term recovery, long-term rehabilitation. They wanted me to do a year, in this environment, sort of maintaining this recovery, because they don't believe, all the times I've done short-term programs, it's quick, like to switch them and say, I'd leave the rehab and then, I wouldn't tap into any of the resources that I'd learned or do any of the work after that. All the papers that they gave me or the books or stuff, I went into a drawer, and then I went back to life, and then life struggles and everything would, life doesn't change. The world doesn't stop just because I'm inside here. It carries on. And when I go back, it's like being swept into a tidal wave of, oh shit. And like, I might be a swan on the top, but the duck legs are going like this underneath. So, and then I would always, before long, like I think the longest I had, I'd be in treatment, and then a month is the most that I would have sober, and then I would always relapse. And it's only now that I have chosen to sacrifice time and be in this that I'm actually starting to develop. I'm starting to implement some of the tools that I'm learning, and still do some of life on the outside, and it's not as nerve-wracking. But yeah, you can't be institutionalized. Let me say it that way. If you think that I can't live life, let me just sit in a rehab for the rest of my life. You do get those people. They end up going in, getting long-term recovery, or they being in the system, and then they end up working for the institution. Like Delray was saying, she started working. I mean, I don't think that's healthy, because it's fine to work for the thing, but you have to have a life outside of that also. That's because I've noticed the people that always work for institutions, the minute they decide to leave for whatever reason and go home and now try to have a new life or things, it's like that safety net is gone, and then it's sooner or later they end up relapsing again. So yeah, sorry, that's my 2 cents.
Bradley?
Yeah, I'll keep mine quick, short. But I think, Josh, you're touching on it there. it's that thing when we started the beginning of our conversation with being the thing of empathy. And I think when we can empathize with people, we take it on merit of how they're progressing. Because we all don't progress the same through our recovery. Some will need shorter periods, some will need longer periods. But when we put a structure in and say, look, and then I think that's why it's gone wrong, like Mark has been saying the whole time, is that when we say it's a 12-step, 12 steps, right, you should be recovered by now. But everyone progresses differently. So we need to be empathetic towards the people to understand how they're progressing. Then we know how to work with them through their coaching, how their recovery is going to work, how long it might take or how short it might take with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So before we start checking out, anybody else got anything to contribute?
Yeah, I would like to say, so to answer the question a little bit, this is where coaching comes in. This is where we fulfill our role. Post-primary, post-secondary, this is where we step in. And 3 weeks is nothing. If people do a 3-week, they really just only barely have detoxed. They're in super, super duper early recovery, super duper. And then if they only do a 3-week and we happen to receive them after a 3-week intervention, we're sitting with someone that's really fresh out the box with early, in terms of early along their journey. So, but that's from my understanding, and that has definitely been, I've seen myself having worked now as a coach for 2 years. That's the space. That's where we come in. We come in and we support and assist with integration, firstly, of their recovery journey. So like wrapping up what they've just experienced in treatment, maybe perhaps helping them apply the tools they've learned, because 3 weeks is not enough for integration of the tools you learn. It's just like a lot of information. And now we help them, kind of take what they've learned in that 3-week period or month or 6 weeks, whatever it was, and we help them to apply and integrate what they've learned. And then at the same time, there's a process of helping them reintegrate into society, into their work environment, back into their family environment, back into their systems, all the systems, back into their schedules, their routines, and slowly layering, scaffolding them with more resources, more tools, so that they can become functional again in their environment. So cool.
Yeah, that was quite helpful, just to get a framework from the coach's perspective, wasn't it? So all very much newbies here. Tanya,
and it's rare. It's rare that we'll find ourselves working in a system, because there's a couple of coaches out there, and for the most part, you may be employed by a center and be the resident recovery coach or sober coach, but it's for the most part, it's like we'll have to find our own way, and then this is the role we play outside of the system, post or pre-intervention, perhaps. When someone's in a pre-contemplative, contemplative phase, we catch them, and then we may find ourselves referring to primary care, but generally pre or post.
Sure. Yeah. So let's start checking out. Well, Sister Chuma is not muted, so she can start with a checkout.
Okay. Sister Chuma, I'm checking out. I'm feeling content with the conversation that we had in the container, the outline that we gave you guys about how we function at the Foundation Clinic. There is even more to that. We cannot unpack everything in one session, but I'm feeling content and happy for you guys that you are here, and the training program is going on so well. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm taking Josh.
Josh, checking out, feeling good, happy, informed, and proud of Vanessa. So thank you. I'll tag Tanya.
Thanks, Josh. Checking out, yeah, feeling less stressed, and yeah, inspired and engaged. And thank you, Inessa, for holding the container. I know it's not easy. I'd like to tag Bradley.
Thanks, Claudia, for checking me. Yeah, Bradley checking out. Checking out, I think the word is insightful. I think we touched on a lot of things, but I think the two things that I take out is how we just dealt with the word addict, and I think the word empathy. I think that was a nice closure. And well done to Inessa. Mark, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, Mark, checking out, connected, informed, and also really proud of Inessa. I mean, at the beginning, after the break, you had sort of, worries or concerns of how you would hold space, but you've done fantastic the entire way through. I also think that, you were thinking of how you would change the way to sort of include me, especially in the second half. And I felt that you were really great in that, changed the whole feel of things for me. So yeah, I got a lot from the second half of the session. So yeah, you can be very proud of yourself. And yeah, that's me. And then obviously, Inessa, you can just check out yourself.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. I'm checking out, feeling very relieved that I can put the container down. But you've been an amazing crowd too. You really all helped me a lot, and I've learned a lot. So thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see each other next Wednesday.
Thank you, Inessa.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
guys.
See you.